Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Happy Sunday. What day is it? Groundhog Day. Happy Groundhog Day. It's interesting how many people messaged me today wishing me happy Groundhog Day. It almost feels like when somebody says autumn in the fall, right? It's one of those things you never think about, but it comes every year. This weekend is a football-less weekend, right? It's the first one. I talked about this weekend going all the way back into September when fantasy was starting. And I said, we're going to go every single weekend now. And I think I counted it out as 20 weekends, maybe more. I don't know, 22 weekends, whatever it is. And then we have that one weekend off, Super Bowl next week, and then we're done. We're done till next year. Uh, so I was just saying to my wife that the last couple of years, I was happy when fantasy was over. I was kind of happy when football was over, right? Just relax and get into a new season. And this year, I don't know, it's a little different. This year, I'm missing the fantasy. This weekend, I'm missing the football. And I know it's my team in it, and I know a lot of people are like, they're done with it. Their team didn't do well. They're like, yeah, next year it'll be, and maybe because my Chiefs are doing so well, I don't want to see it come to an end. And I used to tell all the Patriot fans, I said, enjoy it while it lasts, because it's going to it's sooner or later it's going to come to an end, and you're going to go from the top to the bottom. And my whole life with the Chiefs, I've been at the bottom, and I've worked my way to the top, so I'm happy to be here. So this weekend was almost a non-hobby weekend. It's a football this weekend, almost a non-hobby weekend. And as I'm recording this early Sunday morning, there's still a chance I'll do some hobby stuff today. I know I'm going down to Bill and Billy Sports Cards, down to their LCS today. I'm meeting a few people there. I got a few things going on, and so it's going to be somewhat of a hobby Sunday afternoon. But this week, I ended up buying a lot of cards. I worked on a deal for a few days this week and got the transition done Saturday morning. And I'll go over that deal and all the cards I picked up in just a few minutes. But let's just jump into the episode. Even though there were no shows that I went to on Saturday, there was a show 1 hour south of me, 1 hour north of me, that I was not able to go to either of them because I just had something going on Saturday afternoon and the timing wasn't going to work out. And I also had to meet somebody Saturday morning to get the deal done I was just talking about. So timing just didn't work out for me to get to a show on Saturday. So I spent some time here in the office. I had some stacks of cards that I ripped, penny sleeving and top loading and separating and getting them in boxes. I have the Mohegan Sun show coming up in a couple weeks. And also there's a Friday night New Britain show coming up. So I figured, you know what? I'm not getting out to a show, but I'm going to take this time in the office to kind of get a little organized. I had an order delivered from PSA this week that I was putting those cards in sleeves. I had an order delivered from SGC, sleeving those as well. So I just had a lot of busy work to do here in the office. And while I'm in the office here, I have a chance to, take a good look at the cards that I have around the office. Cards I'm holding, cards I'm selling, players I'm prospecting on. I've got a whole variety going on here. And if you've been along for this ride, I'm always planning ahead, for in the prospecting and the holding market. And I realized, and it's something that's really been on my mind, that I seem to have a pattern that I continuously do the same thing over and over again that I've been doing since I've come back into the hobby. Um, and it's this mindset of quantity over quality, quantity over quality, right? I seem to want to get as many cards of a player as I can and not worry about the quality of that card, whether it's a base card, an auto card, a number card, right? I seem to focus in on more of the lower end cards. Um, from the online auctions that I'm trolling, right? To the local shows and the shows that I set up at, my buying patterns always seem to be the same. I steer away from the higher end cards, the more expensive cards, and I seem to focus in and buy a ton of these like 25 to $200 cards, right? The singles, the graded PSA 10s, anything that's maybe a 9 that I look at that I could crack out and make it a 10, like that type of thing. So when I'm prospecting on a player, I feel like I'm almost hoarding the cards, right? I'm getting as many of those cards as I can. Um, and if it's a player that I plan on, selling or something that I'm getting quickly, that I'm going to, get it graded as quickly as I can and get it to market as fast as I can. Right. But again, it's still a lot of those that lower. Now, look, I jump into breaks, I open boxes, I hit some bigger cards, but for the most part, we know, most of that stuff is all low end. I go out to the shows, right? Whether I'm set up or I'm walking the shows and I'm seeing like players that I'm looking for, there's usually not a lot of high end stuff like in the women's basketball type thing. I usually have to go online or be someplace specific to find that. But I can find a ton of the low end stuff, right? The base stuff, the first Bowmans, a lot of that stuff. Um, and that seems to be the stuff that I'm continuously buying all the time, to a point where I'm like, I some like I was Saturday, like I can't believe how many cards I own of certain players, right? In my mind on a player I'm prospecting on that I'm looking to sell in the future, I try to get a decent variety, but there's the majority is always the low end. I never see like I have I don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't have any mid to higher end cards, but my majority seems to be a lot of the lower end stuff because in my mind, I think that's what's going to sell the easiest, right? So when all of a sudden it's time to go to market and I pull out these 50 or 60, PSA 10 cards that, I was getting into cheap that hopefully they've doubled or gone up in price, right? And in my mindset, that's what's going to happen. These $50 cards are going to be 150 or $200 cards. Like in my mind, when I'm doing that, that is my thought pattern. Whether it be right or wrong, that's what's happening in my mind. And even those lower to mid end cards, in my mind, they're going to be mid to higher end cards, right? And I'm really starting to notice that the lower end cards are just not paying off. It's just everything I plan in my mind that I think this is what's going to happen. It's going to double, it's going to triple, it's going to whatever. It just doesn't seem to happen. But then I'll buy something else and I'll be like, "Well, yeah, that's nice. I mean, I'll get those graded. They should do well." And then they like 10x, and I'm like, "How is it that card that 10x and all these other cards didn't?" And there's a pattern to this, and I'm starting to just to figure this out that if I'm going to start buying things, I need to start buying, you know, numbered cards, mostly numbered cards is what I'm starting to see. Is anything that has a print, the print run on it that's numbered And even with this WNBA stuff and this women's stuff and the women's basketball stuff, the autos, the colored cards, the low print runs or just a print run on it just being numbered. So I'll give you an example. Like for instance, I have a ton of Paige Beckers, like First Bowmans, First Bowman pink refractors, and even the First Bowman refractors, right? And I started buying these cards last spring, right? Want to be ahead of it because they're talking about her being the first round draft pick next year. So she should have been all the rage this year, right? So I started buying a lot of her stuff, and I was buying these PSA 10s for probably, from $40 to $90, right? Just in that price range. Uh, and holding on to a lot of them. Now I'm starting to pull them out and I'm starting to price them, and they're barely over $100. I mean, some of them are under, some may go over 100, but for the investment that I put in these cards last spring to hold all the way to this time on those lower end base cards, that really didn't pay off. Really didn't pay off. Some of those I'm just breaking even on. And I know I'm just breaking even on them. And maybe I should be happy to be breaking even on it. I mean, it's possible I could be taking a huge loss on some of these cards. So maybe happy to be taking, breaking even on them. So I think to myself, was it worth holding these cards all these months? And even maybe is it too early? Like we're in February, should it be to March Madness? Because she really hasn't done that much this year. She hasn't been all the rage like we expect her to be. So I don't know if those cards could even go lower, going into March Madness. And the answer to myself is no. It just wasn't worth it. And I think most of the problem is that they're so overprinted and the pop counts are just keep rising and rising. They never allow these cards to ever gain any value. And then I look at these other cards that I spent more money on back in the spring and early summer, the $300 to $500, the autos like the green to 99 or any of those like that to the 199 to 125, right? And now these prices, and even the gold to 50, these prices are like $700 to $1,500 now, right? So these cards really jumped up in price. Whereas all those lower end cards that I thought could be quick double ups on all really didn't go anywhere. These higher end cards all really jumped up. I mean, the value of these cards really, really jumped up nicely compared to where I was in the market to buy them. I've used the same mentality with Juju Watkins. And I'm at a point now where I'm looking at what I have, and I think to myself, do I need one more First Bowman or Bowman refractor? I have boxes of them, right? I've graded a ton of stuff. I bought a bunch of PSA 10 stuff of hers. And one of the differences with her is she was only in 1 year of Bowman and she was only in 1 year of McDonald's All-American. So those are the 2 years of cards you can get on her. Fortunately or unfortunately for someone like me, her Bowman year was the same year as Wemby. So those boxes are still, 3 years later, those boxes are still $400 to try to buy one of those boxes. So, and I think so many people are still sitting on those because nobody's really buying them for the Wemby cards anymore. And I think there's probably a lot of great Juju Watkins cards, sitting in a lot of those boxes. But I've opened up a couple of those boxes to get 0 Juju Watkins cards. So I would rather just try to find the cards and buy them than waste my time on buying the boxes. And with her too, moving forward, no more of the lower end stuff. It's like it's almost as if I can't help myself to keep continuously buy this lower end stuff. Now we did see with Caitlin Clark, her lower end stuff, the prices really shoot up at one point, and that could happen, but I don't think it can happen when I look at just the amount of cards that I have of her, right? The Bowman and the McDonald's All American. I would have to imagine it's going to be the same thing with the page cards, that there's just so many out there that the values will never get traction to try to go up, you know, at all. I think those values are going to stay down. I mean, if they do pop up, great, because I'm going to be holding the cards anyways. But at this point, I'm done buying any of the lower end stuff. I'm just looking, especially on her. I would just be buying higher end stuff, because I really just don't think there's the value in any of our lower end stuff now. And again, it just comes back for me, in my mindset, is the quality over quantity. If I'm going to spend more money on that, more money prospecting, um, I need to take some risks, right? I need to buy some higher end cards and hopefully to see those climb up. But I'm using these two players because it's what I'm doing right now. But that would work for any player out there, any player that anyone's prospecting right now. I'll give you for instance. I had the Jaden Daniels. I was at Culture Collision. I went to Culture Collision with 3 Don Russ, Jaden Daniels PSA 10s. So everybody at that show had them priced at 275, right? I put mine because I looked at the comps were 280, 295. So I walked around that show. I originally priced mine at 275. I walked around that show. I saw how many people had those cards walking around that show. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm gonna bring my price down a little lower, right? The race to zero. I'm that eBay guy, right? But so I put mine in there at 260. And somebody came and said, "Oh, how come you're 260? Everybody's 275." I said, "Well, it's just, how I want to price my card." I ended up selling all 3 of those cards for $240. All 3 sold at $240. Do you know yesterday, and I haven't looked today, but yesterday I looked at the comps on that card, they were about 175. And that was only 1 week later. That card's selling at 175. And I know I was first to market, or pretty close first to market. I sent orders in immediately to PSA when the first Don Russes that I opened, and I pulled 3 of those cards out. I immediately sent them to PSA. And I know people are all starting to get those PSA orders back yet and now, and I know it's going to be that race to zero on eBay where buy it now at 150, at 140, at 100, at 90, right? It's just going to come crashing down, and I know that. And I know that. So when I went to Culture Collision, my mindset was, don't leave here with those cards because they're just a low end, right? Dime a dozen cards that right now they look great and people are buying them, but a week or two from now, they're going to be half price or less. So I wanted to get out and move them quickly. And here's a player that we're all waiting for his card to come out, right? Because he's already a star. And now we're talking. I'm referring to my prospecting, right? That you know who knows when it's going to be the right time to start selling the Watkins cards, right? I mean, it could be a year from now. Who knows? And I could still be, maybe building another room in my house to hold all of her cards. But um, I think back, and I think it was Chris from Card Ladder that who used to say, if you're going to PC a player, own the top 1% of their cards. Right? I mean, that's if you're going to PC a player, own the top 1% of their cards. Don't worry about all the little cards. Go right to the top, right? Um, and although I hadn't thought of that in quite some time, it hit me Saturday looking around my office at all these cards that I have, that's what I did with my Trinity Rodman PC, right? And I remember that I remember hearing that in my head saying, you know what, if I'm going to PC a player, I need to have the best cards of that player, right? And I did. I own all her top cards. So, and even though I have a ton of her lower end and base stuff, it gets no love from me. I mean, it sits in a box here in the office. Um, and there's no display like the PC, what I have displayed for here in the office. So, um, you can call it my aha moment, sitting in my office, spending time, with just me and my cards and looking around and just thinking about, you know, what changes I'm going to make, what changes I think are, what are the smart decisions here? What is money well spent? I mean, is it going to be well spent on a ton of base cards, or should I just hold off and then buy something a little bigger? And that's going to be my new strategy on my prospecting, right? And even first to market cards, if I could get them, I see a lot. I had the opportunity to buy a few other Jaden Daniels cards that I kind of turned down because I was afraid I would buy them, and by the time I tried to get them to market, they would have already dropped in price, which looking now, I probably would have done well. So there's another risk reward that I'll have to think about with future players and future cards, right? Prism just came out now. I think Prism football is horrible, absolutely horrible. I've watched hobby boxes get ripped. I've watched the megas get ripped, the blasters. I think the only value is in the cello packs. Um, Retail boxes, I've ripped retail boxes. The only thing I've done well and I've seen anyone else do well in is the cello pack. So, and those are the lowest end, right? Those aren't the hobby exclusive cards that are the cards we really should be looking at, right? The green hypers and the purples and the true greens, all these cards that are numbered. Those are the cards that we really should be looking at. Moving forward, I just have to, bite the bullet and invest in the bigger cards, and not necessarily try to go out and rip them, to just go out and make the purchases, and leave the base stuff alone, or a lot of that base stuff alone. Quality over quantity, and I think over time you're going to start seeing my cases at shows changing as well, looking a lot more like that. Not saying I'm going to have these massive cards in my case, because that's not what my plan is, but try to get away from the overpopulated base and lower end stuff that it just seems like, it's a flash in the pan, and it just, always nosediving in prices. And just try to find some more rare and scarce stuff, autographed, numbered, colored cards, anything that separates that card from their low end base stuff. That will be the goal moving forward. Quality over quantity. So on Wednesday this week, my guy Steve on IG at SLPC reached out to me. We met at the Hofstra show before. We've chatted online. He was coming to Connecticut. He was going to go to the Enfield show. He hadn't been to the Enfield show since 2017. So he was making the trip to the Enfield show. And he talked about the last time he was there. And this is the things we remember in the hobby, right? That I don't remember the exact card, but Steve, when you listen to this, you can drop a comment below and tell people what that card was. But there was a card you bought there from somebody ridiculously cheap, sent it out to grading, and it came back a 10. And it was one of those stories, right? A story of a card that you're not going to forget, right? You always remember that card. But he hadn't been there since 2017. He was heading back, and he had some cards for sale, wanted to know if I was interested. Everybody knows me. I mostly do ultra modern football, women's basketball. But when people tell me they have cards for sale, I say, you know what? Send me pictures, because you'll never know what I'm going to be interested in, because I never know what I'm going to be interested in until I see the pictures, right? I mean, sometimes you never know what, And sometimes it's a life changer, right? Or sometimes nothing at all. You never know what's going to happen. So I always say send the pictures. So he sent a bunch of pictures. We were able to make a super easy deal. Just a little bit of the back and forth negotiation, which you know how I feel. That's the way it should be. It shouldn't take hours or days to get a deal done. If it does, then the deal wasn't for me because I don't have the patience to do that. Right. So, yeah, it was just a super easy deal. And he actually came to me Saturday morning on his way to Enfield and, dropped the cards off and we were able to chat for a bit. And I'm going to warn you, these are not cards you would think that you would see in my case. So I think you're going to be a little bit surprised here. But since Saturday, sitting around me, having time here in the office with me and the cards, kind of have a whole new outlook on the year, and just going to start doing a few different things, not being so, strict on what I'm putting in my cases, just, switching it up a little bit. So let me share my pickups with you. And if you're on YouTube, I'm holding them up. If not, I'll explain them. This is a 2022 Panini NBA Hoops. It's a LaMelo Ball, artist proof gold, numbered to 10, PSA 9. The next one is a 2018 Panini Select Baker Mayfield Red Prism. This is his rookie. Select Red Prism, PSA 10. Never thought I'd be buying a Baker Mayfield card. We got a 1961 Topps Willie Mays, PSA 4. My first trip down vintage lane here. 1962 Topps Willie Mays, PSA 4. A 1992 Bowman Mariano Rivera, PSA 10. A 2003 Topps Chrome Kobe Bryant Refractor, PSA 10. I know you guys are surprised now. You're like, what is going on over there with sports card lessons? You ready for this? A 1959 Topps Jim Brown, PSA 7. Come on, man. And lastly, what you would more expect me to buy and put in my case, and this card's a banger, 2020 Panini Prism Justin Jefferson black and white checkered prism, PSA 10. So, yeah, a nice variety there, a real nice variety. And I'm excited, right? I'm excited to start switching it up a little bit and not have so much. And you know what? I just almost a reset. And I talked about this last week. Almost a reset, right? That I've sold off 90% of my inventory. I'm free to do whatever I want right now. Pick up whatever I want, put whatever I want in my case. So I'm super excited for that. I'm super excited for these cards. Steve, thank you for the deal. Really appreciate it. I will be back Thursday with a brand new episode with the Hobby Chop guys. And that's been gaining some traction. So looking forward to that. You're going to have me here. I've been telling you, you'll have me one episode a week solo, but I'll be back Thursday. We'll be back with the trio, and I like that. I like that mix of guys over there. I think we're really starting to find our stride over there. So definitely come back and check that out. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. And until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.